Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 5th day of June in the year of our Lord, 2026. My beat today is war. And as usual, there's no shortage of war to talk about. But today I discuss President Trump's angry, profanity-laced tirade directed at Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. Did it really happen? And if so, why did it happen? And if it did not happen, then why say that it did? It's no secret that Trump wants the U.S. role in the war against Iran ended, and quickly. The war has placed the world's economy in jeopardy. Therefore, its end is imperative. To that end, Trump has been negotiating with somebody representing Iran while using Pakistan as the broker in that deal. Every time it looks positive and Trump announces that fighting has stopped, it turns out to be a little premature. Trump says we have a deal ending the war. Fighting has ceased. In response, gas prices in the U.S. come down slightly. The stock market soars. The next step is for Israel to continue attacking in Lebanon as if there were no peace talks at all. Apparently, Trump got tired of it this week and placed a call to the prime minister. The story reported at first by people physically present for the call, later admitted by the president himself, went something like this. Trump called Netanyahu effing crazy, accused him of ingratitude. Quote, "You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your ass," end quote. Everybody hates you now. Well, he goes on, everybody hates you now. Everybody hates Israel because of this, end quote, finally. In the meantime, whether Netanyahu got his message or not, Israel continued its war in Lebanon as if nothing had happened. According to Lebanese news agency NNA, the Israeli attacks continued. Hezbollah continued attacks against Israeli forces inside Lebanon. Lebanon's embassy in Washington said Hezbollah would refrain from further attacks if Israel would show the same restraint, but Israel does not seem interested. Israel announced that the fighting would continue, but it would not strike Beirut while talks were ongoing. Israeli and Lebanese ambassadors are in talks at the State Department in Washington. That makes me wonder if the Lebanese government has the authority to negotiate for Hezbollah. I guess one answer to that question is that Hezbollah is the Lebanese government. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said that President Trump backed the strikes in southern Lebanon. It's all very confusing, very conflicting, but there's one other possibility. There is a possibility that the phone call never took place at all, or if it did, then the whole thing was a stage show between Trump and Netanyahu, staged for our benefit. Why would the president stage a profanity-laced conversation he had with a foreign leader? To me, the better question is, why would he allow that conversation to be publicly leaked? Then why would he admit that he said those things? I suppose the answer lies in his response to criticism he has been getting from the media and from people in his own party about how he does the bidding of Netanyahu, that he says America first, but in practice it's Israel first. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's true here, but if it were all fake, it would be to bolster his image, the image of a strong leader who doesn't tolerate disrespect from allies. I don't know which version is true, but it's very suspicious to me, very suspicious that the administration made such a big deal out of what should have been a private conversation. Israel, through its defense minister, has said that it would be remaining permanently in southern Lebanon, so why does this tiny country of only 9 million people seem so aggressive and so intent on expansion? For one thing, its tiny size relative to its neighbors makes it very vulnerable. At its widest point, Israel is only 71 miles wide, and at its narrowest point, it's only 9 miles wide. In other words, defense in depth is virtually impossible because it has no avenue of retreat to fall back on, to regroup, as any retreat would put enemy forces right in Israeli cities. Therefore, it must attack constantly to push back its enemies who state clearly that they seek its destruction. Looking at Israel from the Israeli position, then they probably see their status as expand or die. Since defense in depth is essential and determines if a country has enough space to recover from an initial attack, Israel believes it must constantly seek to push out its borders because a defeat on its borders leaves it extremely vulnerable. Now, with the new form of unmanned warfare coming to light with drones and missiles, one of Israel's chief advantages is taken away or at least diminished. The advantage is pilot courage and pilot training, which, thanks to the U.S., is some of the best in the world, along with top-of-the-line aircraft that all serves to make Israel a foe to be reckoned with. Drones and missiles are rapidly changing the dynamics of war, and Israel and the U.S. are apparently late to the game, a little behind. So how best to defend against them? Israel's tactic seems to be to attack with as much force and tactics as ruthless as necessary to push the enemy back as far as possible. I admit all this is guesswork, folks, but to much of the world, the Israeli attacks appear to be genocide. But to Israel, they just don't care. For them, it's survival. Israel, it seems to me, could be controlled enough for the U.S. to at least make peace because it lives in a very bad neighborhood. Israel, that is. It's a very bad neighborhood. And without the U.S., Israel could not exist as a sovereign nation. It is a little unrealistic to think that Israel, with its 9 million people, would never face a superior force or a coalition of forces. Therefore, Trump's phone call, if it did happen, and was not a pre-planned exhibit, probably necessary, although the crass profanity, which is so common now, could have been tempered. That type of profanity is so common it no longer has any meaning except that the user has no appropriate vocabulary to use. It reminds me of a different time when President Truman, reportedly used the word damn in the presence of Madame Chiang Kai-shek, the widow of Chiang, who had been ruler of China until he was overthrown in the Maoist Revolution. Madame Chiang resented President Truman's words and complained about it to the press. It was a front-page scandal. A few presidents have apparently resisted Israeli pressure to attack Iran. If the testimony of Obama's Secretary of State is accurate, then he's one who did. George Bush would not do it either, but lots of Israeli money poured into the campaign of one who would and did. Often, national leaders opt for whatever they think is necessary for staying in power rather than what they truly believe to be in the national interest. The smaller the group they actually have to please and to make happy, the better, or at least that makes it easier. If staying in power and the national interest happen to coincide, well, that's just great. But in my opinion, they rarely do. Finally, folks, there are reasons for why people do things, but quite often we don't know what the real reasons are. We just speculate. Back in Truman's day, we're different. We were a little different, perhaps a little naive about our leaders. Maybe we still are. At least that's the way I see it. Till next time, folks, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.